What's up, guys? This is Fabulous Fabs, part number 2. I had talked to you guys in my sex video in public about one of my exes, and this guy destroyed me completely. That relationship broke me to another level because I was young. I was my first time that I was really in love, because before him, I thought I was in love. But it wasn't until after him that I was like, oh shit, like I really was in love. Like I hit rock bottom with this guy. Like I legitly lost myself. I lost myself in the relationship. I lost myself financially. I lost myself mentally. I lost myself as a person. So let me take you back to, I kind of told you guys how we met. He was one of my coworkers at one of my jobs, and he started pursuing me, asking me out. We ended up getting together, and then we were dating. It was great. It was like one of the things that you see in the movies. It was like, oh my God, like this is the best thing in my life. Like we were exactly the same person. Just I was a girl and he was a guy. He didn't care. He was down. I didn't care. I was down. It was like we were a match, you know? And I remember, like, at one point I was living by myself and he was living with roommates, and he told me, he's like, hey, how about we just move in together? And he's like, we're both paying rent in different places, and we're always just in one spot. And I was like, and we had only been dating for like 2 months. Like this relationship started and ended so freaking quick. Like within 2 years, it was done and over with. 1.5 years even, I think. At this time, I don't remember, and I don't really care to figure it out. It's not that important to me anymore. It doesn't affect me at all. I could care less. Like, I'm happy. He moved in with me, and we would just do spontaneously, like, hey, let's go shooting. And we had a bunch of guns. I'm pro guns, by the way. And we would go shooting, and he'd be like, oh, I'd be like, let's go to Six Flags. I love Six Flags. And then we'd be like, okay, I'm down. And then he would be like, oh, let's go to Mexico. Like just on a weekend. We would work Monday through Friday, and we would both have weekends off. We didn't have no kids. We didn't have no responsibilities. So it would be like, we just pick something to do and we just go and do it. Like we never had any questions about it. And everything was going great. Like we would have fights here and there, but I never wanted to have a relationship where, first of all, I depended on a man, I relied on a man, or where I was abused physically by a man, or verbally at that fact. I am hardcore Mexican. I consider myself a paisa AF, and I don't care if people think that's whack or if I have a nopal on my forehead. I don't care. Like I represent Mexico, you know, and I also represent USA because I'm very Americanized. But I love like corridos. I love like Mexican traditions. I love Mexican food. I love like a lot of the Mexican culture, but I'm also open-minded. Like I'll try different foods. I'll try different things. I'll try different activities. I'll try different recipes that are Americanized or whatever. Anyways, getting sidetracked, sorry. And we would just do all this kinds of other stuff. We'd go on mini trips. We would do this, we would do that. I remember one time, like we got into an argument really bad, and I was feisty. Like I'm feisty now, but back then my temper was like, whoosh, like whoosh. Now it's like over here. Like people that know me back in the day and see me now, they're like, man, you're a changed woman. Like you don't understand. Like my feistiness was always like, so what's up? Like, what do you want to do about it? Right, and ready to like get in people's faces and shit. Like I was like that crazy, you know? I don't know why. I think it was just a lot of built anger, a lot of built like resentment from people bullying me all the time, that I felt like enough was enough. Like anybody who wanted it was gonna get it at that time. You know, like, come on. Like I'm always being pushed around. I'm always being called names. I'm always being this, and that. I had decided enough was enough. Like I was done with being everybody's punching bag, you know, and I decided to fight back. So basically, we went on a trip with this family to Puerto Vallarta. It was my first time going to a touristic vacation. Like my family's vacations is we're going to the swap meet and back. And you better be happy, you know? My family has never really traveled back then. This is all back then. I'm 30 now. I'm going to be 31 this year. So think about it. This was like 10 years ago. My life came crashing down one day after this vacation. This vacation was amazing. It was us being we stayed at a resort, a 5-star resort on the beach. It was like my first time of being away from my family, like on my own, you know, in a different country, just being away and doing like me, you know. I remember I went swimming with the dolphins, I went kayaking, I went parasailing, we went scuba diving, we did ATVs, we did zip lining, we had the best time. And we had gone with this family and it was great. I got along with them really good, especially one of his sisters. And then it all came crashing down. We were living together at this time, so we were in our bedroom and his phone rings. His phone rings and he looks at his phone like it's ringing, and then I'm like, your phone's ringing, and he kind of doesn't want to answer it. So then he goes and grabs his phone and does this, and then I'm like, who is it, you know? And he's like, I think it's my ex. And I'm like, your ex? He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, answer it. So he goes to answer it and she had hung up. And I was like, well, call her back. Like, why is she calling you? Like, we've been together for like, we had gotten together officially like in February. Like the first week of February, second week of February. I don't remember. It was like February, maybe late February. And this trip had happened around September, I remember. So the phone call was in September. And so he calls her back, and all I can hear is like, we're in this small room and you can hear everything. And his phone is like, it was a good phone that she wasn't even on speaker, but you could hear her yelling like, bah, 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 bah. And she's like cussing him out, and she's saying this and that. And she's like, oh, he has a son? Like, where has the son been? Like, how come nobody's ever told me about it? I've met his sisters, I've met his mom, I've met his stepdad, like I met his nephews and nieces, and nobody's ever told me about a son. Like, where did this son come from? And he's like, and he told her like, blah, 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 you're crazy, and hung up. And I'm like, you have a son? Okay, so keep in mind my ex and his ex had broken up because she cheated on him. So he was like, oh, she just told me she's pregnant and she thinks it's mine. And I'm like, well, when was the last time you banged this chick? Like, because we've been together for a couple of months now. Like, when did she get pregnant exactly? Like, were you with? What's going on? And then he was like, no. He's like, no, it was before we broke up. But this guy didn't tell me exactly when they had broken up. Turns out like they had broken up like a week before he got with me, or even days before he got with me. It was crazy. And I was like, even then, I'm pretty sure this is not the first time she's hitting you up. Like, I'm pretty sure this is not the first time that she's telling you about the situation. Like, why are you taking so long? Why did you take so many months and did all this stuff? Now I come to find out, like, I should have known from the get-go, even if it was a possibility that you could be this kid's dad. Like, that was a choice for me to make. Like, I just felt betrayed, you know? Like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I was like, oh my God, what's my family gonna say? Like, you know, he was like the first, like, person that I really cared about or I really loved, like I told you guys. And it was just like a big deal. Like, I thought I was gonna marry this guy. I remember my friend, one of my good friends from work, had proposed to his girl, and she had turned him down. And he's like, what am I going to do with this ring? And I was like, that's a nice ass ring, bro. I'll just buy it from you just because it's a nice ring, you know? Just because I don't have anything nice. And I ended up buying that ring from him. And my boyfriend at that time said, like, he would buy me the ring if we got married the next day in Vegas. And I should have known. He literally told me that the day before. He was willing to marry me the day before I gave it up to him. And the reason I remember this is because the day he was trying to get me to marry him was the day of my cousin Fletty's 21st birthday. So she's 6 months older than I am. She's born in June and I'm born in November. And that's the only reason I remember the dates, because I was looking at the ring at her party and I was like, look, my coworker's selling this ring. Like, his girl just turned him down. He proposed and she said no. And I was like, this is a nice ring. Like, I don't even want it to get engaged. I just want it to want it, you know? And he was like, I can buy you that ring, but I'll buy you that ring if we get married tomorrow in Vegas. And I was like, no, are you crazy? I was like, first of all, my parents would kill me. Second of all, they would be hella butthurt because like I didn't invite them to the wedding, and that's not the way you're supposed to get married. And you know, I'm already not considered like follow Mexican tradition or follow Mexican, you know, the ways that you do stuff. So I was like, no way. I was like, we're young, but we were living together. We were serious. Like we were talking about having kids, this whole 9 yard, and now this thing happens. And then once this thing happens is when I tell you guys that I start finding all these things. Like I've always had 2 jobs at least, except for right now. Always worked 2 jobs. Like I worked at a restaurant one time, and then I worked at Ross for less. I worked at with my dad, and I worked with my current job. I was also going to school full time. So when I was dating him, I was going to school full time, working at Ross, and then working my current job right now. So I had basically 2 part-time jobs. Is considered a full-time job, and then going to school full-time when I was with this guy. And I was just like, this is crazy. Like this guy, like what does he want from me? And what does he do all day? Because he only had 1 job, but he would always have money, you know? Basically what ended up happening is like, oh, can we find out like if this is your kid? Like the sooner we find out, the better, you know? And we found out that you could do a paternity test while the baby is still in the belly. And I just wanted to know. I wanted to know if him being a potential dad was going to affect our relationship and how we were going to go about it. I have nothing negative to say about stepdads, stepmoms, half children, nothing like that. Because I have a stepdad. Jerry Tweak's dad and Beauty Mars's dad is my stepdad. But he's been my dad since I was 5 years old. And so he's my dad. So anytime I mention dad, that's who I'm talking about. I don't ever refer my biological dad ever. I don't even consider him at all. He's not part of my life. He never has been. He's a nobody to me. I don't know him. Nothing. I don't care for him. The whole 9 yards. So my thing was like, is this gonna change our life? Because I don't have a problem with having a half kid or a step kid. My problem was I never wanted to deal with the baby mama, especially if they were crazy. And like I told you guys before earlier in the video, I'm crazy myself. I was extra hella crazy back then. So we wanted to see if she would be willing to do the paternity test while she still had a baby in her stomach. She said, hell no. She's like, you guys gonna have to wait till the baby is born and then you can do a DNA test.